subject to. It's a very popular subject. I actually try to not talk about it too much in publicly because people will get this information and go out and do the wrong thing. So please be mindful that to do this the ethical way and not end up in jail.
Mama, I love you. P.O.P. all the time.
Interest rates are extremely high right now. Probably the highest they ever been in, I don't know, umpteen years or so. But how can you get a 2 to 3% interest rate? In this video, I'm going to break it down to you how you can still get a 3% or even 2% interest rate even in this market climate. Now, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be using a tool called Subject To. What is Subject To? Subject To is taking an existing loan subject to. What is an existing loan? A loan that someone already has, and it may or may not be performing, but somebody signed the documents to take on that loan. That is an existing loan for the bank, right? So what are the things that you need? First things first, you're gonna need a motivated seller. Being that I'm the Doru and I actually do this business, I'm gonna use a real life example of how I got my subject to property, right? A lead came in for somebody who was behind on their mortgage, right? And they were about to walk away from the house. And I said, hey, listen, the house was upside down. That's correct. The house was upside down, meaning that the house was actually worth less than the loan. So let's say they owed $80,000 on the loan. The house was probably worth about $50,000, $60,000. But with me personally, I'll do those type of deals if the payment makes sense. They had a $540 a month payment. So being that they had a $540 a month payment, this thing could rent for $800, could potentially get more via Section 8, but at that time, to a cash tenant, it can rent for $800, right? And I was in an apartment paying, at that time, $600 something for a 1-bedroom. And I'm like, yo, it's a 3-bedroom, 2-bath house. I said, man, I'm gonna just take this thing over.
Ooh, this is nice.
So that's what I did, right? I took it, I got it under contract, and I ended up moving inside the property, right? And I took over the $540 payment, okay? So when you say to yourself,
but how do you find these types of deals, man? Where are these deals at?
well, you can find these types of deals. Let's say your pre-foreclosure list is a great way to get subject to properties. With your pre-foreclosure list, ideally, if you want to get people who have these type of interest rates, then you might want to target 2018 up until like 2021 or so to target when interest rates was low, because those people are going through foreclosure as well. You can probably take over their stuff. Let's say you find the motivated seller. Now, what is required for you? You have to explain this to the seller so they know, hey, the loan is staying in your name. The loan will reflect on your credit. However, the deed is coming to me and I'll make your payments going forward. Now, some people are going to say, hey, but how do I know you're going to actually make my payments? You can talk about your credibility, etc. Or sometimes you're actually giving these people money to walk away from the loan. So you might give them $5,000, $10,000, $3,000, $2,500, whatever you negotiate. So you know that, yo, if this person just gave me $10,000, they're probably going to make my payment, right? So I've been able to get into these with no money. I've been able to get into these with putting money up. It just all depends on the deal and how it worked out, right? The one I got in with no money that I actually moved in, I like to talk about that one because it's my favorite one, right? And it's, means something to me that I actually lived in the house or whatever. So with that particular deal, what you're gonna need is a trust. You want to take that property on in a trust. If you take that property on into another entity or in your name, the bank can exercise a due on sale clause. What is the due on sale clause? That means if the example I gave you, if I were to put it in my LLC, the bank could have called and said, hey, yo, we see that this title changed hands. They could have mailed a letter. They could have called and said, we want to be paid in full in 60 days.
Show me the money.
This is the payoff. And if you don't pay in full in 60 days, they can foreclose it. I've met people this has happened to. And some people say, oh, it rarely happens. It's a small chance, but it does happen, okay? So to not exercise the due on sale clause, what you want to do is you want to use a trust, right? Because legally you can use a trust if your intent is for estate purposes. if your intent is for estate purposes for changing the deed, you can use a trust, right? So you get that property in a trust, right? And then what you're gonna have to do is get a power of attorney. Once you got that, fax that to the mortgage company and the insurance company. You're gonna cancel their insurance and get your own insurance, okay? Please take my word for that. I one time did it and I didn't cancel their insurance, and I utilized their insurance, and I tried to make a claim, and it went back on them, and it was a mess. Just cancel, get your own insurance. That's the best way to do it. So that way the insurance company has to just contact you, etc. The power of attorney is also so that you can contact bank. You need a POA. To contact bank, you need a POA. So check this out, right? So with the POA, the power of attorney, if you don't have that, and 7 years from now, that property you bought for $80,000 is now worth $160,000, and you like, yo, I'd rather cash out on this thing than hold it on as a rental. Well, if you don't have a power of attorney, you're gonna have to track down that seller and have them order a payoff, and they're gonna say,
Hey, what are you ordering to pay off? You about to pay it off? You selling it or what?
and they're gonna say,
Oh, you selling? How much? What? Well, you want to reincorporate? You're gonna have to throw me $10,000, $20,000.
so to prevent that from happening, make sure you get your power of attorney. All right? I've seen people do these deals and not get a power of attorney. And they can't call the bank and ask them any information. You can't change the insurance. They can't do anything. So make sure you get the power of attorney, and you want to fax that to the mortgage company and the insurance company, cancel that insurance and get your own insurance, okay? These are what is required: trust paperwork, the power of attorney, and last but not least, getting your own insurance. Very important that you do that to get these particular deals. Now, back to the deal that I said. Some of you are thinking, like, why would you get a deal that's upside down? Remember, upside down is they owe more on the loan than what the house is worth. So the deal that I did, they owed $80,000, house was worth $50,000, but payment was $540. Okay, $540 a month. So what did I do? I had to get creative as a real estate investor. And as a real estate investor, your first start should be cash flow, okay? Can I hold this for cash flow? Can I wholesale it? Can I flip it? I knew that the market was at a down place and that the market would go back up. So therefore, what I did was I was like, yo, as a rental, I can rent this all day, twice on Sunday. This is perfect. 3-bedroom, 2-bath. This is like the perfect ideal rental for a middle-class neighborhood, okay? So that's what I did, right? I kept this particular property, but I lived in it. So I knew worst-case scenario, I could rent this out and I can cash flow this thing. But of course, as it normally does, the market went back up. When I exited that particular property, that house, I sold it for about $150,000. I walked away with like $60,000 in tax-free profit. Today, that house is worth $300K plus. I know, I don't like to think about it, but today that house is worth $300K plus. Listen, this may sound good. It's a great way to pick up rentals, a great way to pick up flips without having to get a hard money loan and paying high interest rates, etc. But I want you to remember, even though this method seems doable and it seems good for you, please know that you can and will end up in jail. If you take over somebody's house and you don't make the payments, you can and will end up in jail. If you are a realtor in the state of North Carolina, you cannot do this. Okay, you cannot do this. This is some disclaimers, right? So please do not try this. All right. If you just want to wholesale these out, I'm going to advise you against that. To not do that. The reason being, if you wholesale this, right, to somebody and they don't make the payment, you could end up in court with that person. Please be very mindful. And I'm going to leave you with a little story, right? There was a young lady who accumulated 3 or 4 of these, right? 3 or 4 of these. And her intent was good, but she didn't have the money to make the payment on any of them. Intent was good. So what happened? She ended up in court, ended up facing jail time. I don't know how much jail time she ended up getting. Her intent was good, But it doesn't matter your intent. It's do you have the money to make this payment? It doesn't matter, oh, I'm trying to build generational wealth and all this. I'm going to hold this. I'm going to be a landlord. If you don't have the money, don't do this. And I recommend you have at minimum $5,000 for each door that you own for reserve. This is one of the ways, you can buy a property with no money and no credit. And if you want to hear more about this particular house and how I sold it with this subject to deal, listen, I'm going to send you to that video. It's from a few years ago, but check it out, man. Exactly everything I did, I actually do. Because why? I am Nasa, aka the real estate guru. I'm not a guru, I'm a Doru because I actually do this business. Click on the video. Peace.